getting into the network marketing, building my business and stuff like that, as the years went by, I wasn't really on social media like that, but then I got back on social media, and like, as I'm having conversations on there or even off there, I realized even in my conversations about like getting like clients or business partners for the network marketing business, I would be giving people strategies on other stuff in those conversations without like me thinking about it now. I was kind of already navigating that way without thinking about it. And so when I got into a position where I was like thrown into full-time entrepreneurship, it was like I started to utilize those things that I was already doing without thinking.
I'm extremely passionate about helping corporate professionals transition into entrepreneurship. So I had to share the number one thing that helped me develop as an entrepreneur, and that's the morning meetup. I joined the morning meetup specifically for the structure because I'm leaving corporate America, so I'm used to those morning huddles. We got our sales, we know what our goals are, and we get our day started. So I was missing that for 2 years before I even found the morning meetup. Now, the second thing that I really benefited from was the revenue generating activities was not necessarily a thing before 2021. Now, I had my LLC, I had my website, I had a few clients here and there, but the momentum really took off as soon as I got around like-minded individuals and people who really knew the struggles that I was already dealing with, that I could get over my fear of sales and communicating my value and putting myself out there on social media. The friends that I've developed, the mentors and the mentees that I've created relationships with, everything has really created this environment for us to thrive as entrepreneurs. So if you want to develop as an entrepreneur, you're leaving corporate America and you're trying to figure out how do I get my footing in entrepreneurship, then the morning meetup will definitely be a game changer for you. You can learn with us, you can grow with us. And I didn't even mention that we have a book club. Join us in the community. Let's get started today. You will not regret it. Welcome to another episode of the Work and Play podcast. I'm your host, Ariel, and I have the fabulous Amma the Great here to join me.
Hey, hey.
This is about to be lit. I already know. So on the Work and Play podcast, we get to talk about career transitions, life transitions, self-fulfillment, and all of those things, those great and wonderful things, and how they apply to your life.
Yes.
So, but before we get into your story, I definitely want you to introduce yourself. So without further ado, take it away.
Okay, so hi everyone. My name's Amma. I go by Amma the Digital Strategist. I've been in business for myself for about a year now with my company Everlasting Perception, where I give services as it relates to virtual assistant services, also a little bit of project coordination, and also some strategy. I work particularly with solopreneurs, small to mid-sized business owners, and also with leaders of nonprofits. So that's just a little bit about me.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
So for my understanding, like, tell us, what all does a digital strategist comprise of? Like, what makes up a digital strategist?
Oh man, I would say I'll give you a long story to kind of explain it, because when I first came up with the concept for the name of my business, Everlasting Perception, I actually was going to name it Wise Counsel. So, because for me, a lot of strategy comes from wisdom, and I'm a person of faith. So a lot of like the concepts and the ideals that I get when I'm working with, even when I'm having conversations with friends, it always comes with some type of level of counsel on like how to maneuver, and whether it's with business, friends, relationships. So that was kind of like the perspective that I was giving with digital strategy. It's not me just giving like concepts and perspectives based off of my own ideas, but a lot of like the consultations that I've had with people that are thinking about going into entrepreneurship for themselves, or they've been in business for a while. Or I did some consultations with artists as well, helping them with like concepts of how to like market themselves or put themselves on social media platforms. It always started from just like personal conversation of just us just talking and building a relationship. And as I'm like listening and getting an understanding of like, okay, why did you choose to become an artist, or why are you choosing to go into this endeavor? What's your values? What's your vision and your purpose? And once I hear that, then I'm like, okay, then you should kind of maneuver this way. So that's what I think of when I think of strategy, if that that makes a lot of sense.
So then where's the digital piece come in?
The digital piece comes in with, because most people, when they think of digital strategists, they go automatically to social media.
Right.
But I think beyond that, I think as it relates to like systems. So for example, one thing that I talk about with like entrepreneurs and business owners or even leaders of nonprofits is more so like, okay, you're doing all this admin work yourself and you're not focusing on those income generating activities that you need to be focusing on. So like, you know, maintaining your more client acquisition and things of that nature. So strategy in that way is like, okay, you need a virtual assistant. Another thing is you have all these documents that you don't have a system for, and you don't have any organization around that, or you have projects that you're managing, but you don't use the actual system to manage it properly. And that is a collaborative system that allows other people that you're working with to be able to manage the projects appropriately. So you should use Asana or you should use Trello. So giving like strategy in that spirit as it relates to systems and things of that nature, outside of just like, oh, you should be on social media doing this, or you should be on this doing, you know, things of that nature.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now it's starting to click.
Yeah.
When you think digital strategist, I associate that with brand strategist, which is a little bit different because, yes, we think social media, but what it sounds like is it's like a business coach who helps you become a brand in 2021.
Yes.
Which has all to do with the computers and the systems and social media, if we're talking about that.
Right.
Like, not just that, but the triggers and the systems that go behind how you're going to push out these messages.
Exactly.
And then how you're going to have a consistent message based on your values and who you are as a business.
Yes.
Ooh, that's good.
Yeah.
I like that. Okay, I got you. And then you talked about like when it comes to new entrepreneurs tapping into like why they decided to jump into a business. Tell us what's the difference between the conversations that you have with a nonprofit that already has existed versus like a new entrepreneur?
A new entrepreneur, so I think about even myself, like, you know, my own personal story. That conversation is more so, they're like, oh, I have this idea that I want to do something, but I'm just not sure. Or like a lot of them, when it's like their first time launching into entrepreneurship, they're kind of nervous. So they need a lot of like confidence, like self-confident building into just launching into that, or just like a conversation of what that would look like. For example, I had one, you know, consultation with one person that was looking into like starting their own skincare line. So they were like, okay, what are some things that I need to look into before I even start that? So like, okay, building up your social media proof or your social media presence and things of that nature, or getting into like, okay, you need to look up maybe different manufacturers and you need to be working with, or even look into maybe a partnership you can make and not just building something from scratch. So like those different conversations would be more nuanced in that way versus someone that's more established. They're like, okay, I need more order and structure with what I'm doing because I'm doing everything and I'm losing focus on things that would help me more with getting more grants or getting more sponsorships or getting more funding for my nonprofit. So I need more structure and organization. I need somebody to help me with admin work. I need somebody to help me with scheduling. I need someone to help me with reaching out with people and sending different documentation for different things. So that conversation would be more nuanced in that direction. That makes sense.
And then a nonprofit comes to you and they're like, I can only imagine the conversation like, okay, we need to get a grant, so we need to get our digital presence together, or like what's the nonprofit come to you for, and what's their typical problem?
So I would say one client in particular that I work with, he's interesting because he owns like a nonprofit that's more in the faith-based arena, and he also owns his own accounting business, and he's been in accounting for about 15 years now, 15 years and counting. So that conversation was more so like, okay, I have this nonprofit, I have this thing that I'm doing, and I have this project that I want to launch with my nonprofit. So I need help with copywriting for this project. So I need help with documentation for this project. I need help with building communication with other people as it relates to getting funding and for this project, or I need help with building, with scheduling appointments with different people to make partnerships for this project. So that conversation is more like nuanced in that way for that particular situation. And then I had another, well, that wasn't really nonprofit, so that doesn't really go with that. But yeah, that's just to answer that question.
That makes sense. So for solo entrepreneurs, it's like getting clear on what their brand is going to be, and then how to position themselves externally and internally. So you do all of those different like connection points, and then like a nonprofit is like, hey, I have this initiative that I need to make work. What kind of things do I need to have in place so that it's good from a foundation level? That makes sense. Okay. So one thing that I really appreciated in your interview, like your introduction, is like making the differentiation between. Well, you didn't make the differentiation. I make a differentiation
yes.
between wise counsel and advice. Because as a coach, I'm like, I could give you advice based on my personal experience.
Right.
That's where you made the differentiation. It's like advice comes from my personal experience, and this is what works for me. But then wise counsel is taking in consideration the client. So you really have this I would say personalized experience in the way you do things.
Yes.
So like, where did you find that insight is what works better for your clients?
It's interesting because it's kind of something that naturally came from just how I deal with people, like in my relationships, whether that's friends, family, or even people that I'm just meeting. One thing that I really am very like, it just grinds my gears when I'm having conversation with people and I'm just sharing things or like thoughts that I'm having, and they automatically take that as like a situation for them to give advice or to just give perspective. Like, was it unwarranted advice?
Right.
And I can't stand that. So like one thing that I'm adamant about is doing the total opposite. So like I ask a ton of questions to people to just understand, like, okay, what's your thought process? Like, what's your ideals? What's your perspective about this and about that? And then once I feel like I've had that like internal like yes to like come in, or like I'm welcome in, then I share perspective. So that's how I am with like my personal relationships. So I just automatically like transition that into like how I do business, if that makes sense.
It does.
Yeah.
As you were explaining, I'm like, that's exactly how I feel. There's a difference between advice and wise counsel. And like I've never heard anyone else say it in that way.
Yeah.
So I just clung to it as soon as you said it. Plus it kind of goes back to what we were talking about before we even started rolling, which is like, I just want to get a chance to understand like where you're going, because if I don't need to provide advice, then I won't. But if you haven't thought about it, then maybe we can talk about it. So I love that.
Yeah. That's just something that I'm really passionate about. Yeah. I've been passionate about for a while, so yeah.
So yeah, I'm the same way. So thank you for providing like a little bit of foundation onto like what you do as a business person. So let's get into the woman. Like where'd you grow up?
I grew up in St. Louis, Missouri, born and raised. My mom was born and raised in St. Louis. She's the middle child of 5 children, raised primarily by a single mother, but she was married multiple times, but majority of the time she raised her kids herself. And then my dad, he was born in Nigeria. So he's born in Nigeria. He lived there up until he was like 8, and then he moved to the States when he was 8. So if you ever get a chance to meet him, you probably wouldn't be able to tell that he's Nigerian, but yeah, so.
I got you.
Yeah.
Did your parents, were you raised by both parents, or did they split?
So raised by both parents, they're still married. They got together when my brother, so I have an older brother. So when my brother was like really young, and then they had me and then got married, and they've been married ever since. So they've been together for over like 25 years. I hope I said that right. Yeah. I don't be good with like keeping track of numbers, like with some things. So yeah.
I got you. So were you always interested in like entrepreneurship from a young age?
It's interesting because it's like I never knew of that word or that concept, but it's like entrepreneurship and business has always been surrounded by me. So like my grandfather on my dad's side like owned his own was it a corner store in the community, and then like I have like an uncle that's been in multiple different businesses. He got into scrapping, and now he like is really into real estate. He owns like multiple properties all throughout St. Louis, and he's done like contracts, construction contracts with the city and government in St. Louis. So it's like I've been surrounded by it, but I'd never like thought of like, yeah, when I grow up, I want to be an entrepreneur. It was more so like I was always like super creative and like very imaginative. Like I'll be the person in class or just by myself like daydreaming or like writing, journaling and things like that. And I always had like multiple ideas of different careers that I wanted to have. But now like looking back on it as an adult, I just realized that I just wanted like, I guess like some type of autonomy with my life. And I know that entrepreneurship would give me that. So it's kind of crazy how life goes.
Yeah, and then you're finally here and you have a little bit of that autonomy that you're talking about.
Yeah.
So then when you were at which age did you start to say, okay, you said you were thinking about different career paths.
Yes.
But at some point you had to say, okay, well, this is what I'm going to college for, or this is what I'm interested in high school. So when did you start to get an idea of like, okay, this is what I'm going to study?
So it's so interesting because like even when I was in high school, it's funny how like a lot of like, I don't know, but well, I'm sure probably other people had this kind of experience, but how culture kind of like determines like your career objectives. Like, let's say if you watch like Grey's Anatomy or something like that, and you're like, ooh, like this looks so interesting. I want to be a doctor. So for me, I was really into law. Like I still am kind of into law, but like I would watch like Law and Order, SVU, or different CSI or different shows like that. And I remember at one point when I was in middle school, I was like, I want to be a Supreme Court justice because I read a book about Thurgood Marshall because I'm really into history as well. Like I'm really, like
I love it.
I'm geeked out for history. So I was like, I want to do that. And then I looked into what it would take to become a Supreme Court justice. And I was like, I don't want to be in school forever, so I'm not going to do that. So I transitioned from that to, I was like, I want to be an FBI agent, but I was like, dang, like I'm gonna have to keep secrets from my family and all this types of stuff. And I'm like, I don't know if I want to do that either. So like once I actually graduated from high school, I was like, I want to be a forensic scientist.
Okay.
So I was like, okay, I'll go to school for biology and become a forensic scientist. And then like a month before I actually was going to come to Atlanta to go to Spelman, because that's where I went to Spelman College, I got invited to do an enrichment program at one of the schools in St. Louis for the optometry program. Okay. And I was like, oh, this is interesting. And they were going to pay me a stipend of like $400 to do it. And I'm like, I'm 18. So I'm like, ooh, $400. For a whole summer? Okay, I'll do this. So I ended up doing it. I ended up being very interesting.
But what's the optometry program? You said optometry? What is that?
Yeah, so it's an eye doctor.
Oh, optometry. Gotcha.
Yeah, it's an eye doctor. Oh. So I did that program. It was interesting. I got to like dissect a cow's eye. I got to actually work with a black-owned, is a black optometrist in the community who owned his own practice. And I worked with him for like a couple of days. I think it was the last week of the program. I was like, wow, this is like really cool. So I was like, maybe I can do this. So it's like, so I ended up still going to Spelman for biology, did biology my first year, but then I got really involved in like community service work. Okay. So volunteering with like the Ronald McDonald House. It was like, it was so many different organizations, but it was like this other program, Books for Africa, where we would collect books to be sent to different developing countries in Africa. It was another organization where we would collect medical supplies to different countries that did not have them and send them off to there. Mm-hmm. So it's like all this community service work. And I'm like, man, like I'm actually like the idea of like working in the nonprofit space. Mm-hmm. And I was really passionate about people and really passionate about doing like purposeful work that really would help others. And of course I could do that as an optometrist, but the reason why I got into I thought about the idea of being an optometrist wasn't really because I was like, oh, this is this altruistic thing that I'm really passionate about. It's just like, oh, I did this cool program, it's $400, and like, oh, you can make a lot of money doing this. So, like, that was kind of the idea. But then for me, I've always been like really kind of adamant about my faith, and I got really like involved in like ministry and stuff while I was in school. So I was like, I want to do something that I believe that God's calling me to do. So like that's what made me like transition out of like my degree in biology, and I actually ended up I changed my major like 3 times from international.
Really?
Yeah, I changed it from biology to international studies.
Okay.
Because I wanted to do nonprofit or non-governmental work abroad and also in the States. So I was like, oh, I can learn from international studies. But that program really didn't have the support system that I think I needed for me to like flourish. So I was like, okay, I transitioned from international studies and ended up transitioning to sociology. And that's what I got my degree in. And once I graduated from college, I was like, okay, I'm going to work in the nonprofit sector. My dream job was to work for CARE. Because they did like a lot of like the international work and things like that. So
Is CARE a nonprofit?
Yes, CARE is a major nonprofit. Their office is actually here in Atlanta. It's funny, one of my friends actually ended up working there, and now she works somewhere else. But yeah, so that was like my dream job. But like I actually got connected with somebody that worked there. I applied for positions there and things like that, but things just didn't work out. So I ended up just going into the corporate sector and working in like the healthcare and IT sector. And I worked as a client services associate for like 2 years, and then transitioned to project coordination. And while at that time, still working at that company for about 5 years, I was still like into business more so in the network marketing sector. So I went to a lot of leadership conferences and things like that, a lot of like personal development sessions and things like that, and meeting a ton of people and building that business.
How did you get exposed to network marketing?
I got to exposed to that while I was in college.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I was. Go ahead.
Well, okay, so because one, you made 2 we went straight over like the 2 transitions. Because like, for a lot of people, that's like, people do not change their degree. I'm not gonna be here for more than 4 years. I just gotta stick here. My parents will be mad at me. So what was going through your head when you made these 2 transitions?
Well, it was interesting because I took those things into consideration, and like when I went to college, I came with college credits already. Okay. So, and then
you had a little time to make decisions.
Yeah, I had time to make decisions. So I came with college credits already, and I've like full loaded sometimes for some semesters. So even with all those changes I made, I ended up graduating a semester early. Oh. Yeah.
Because you full loaded some I guess because you knew, okay, well, I got to take a new class in here it doesn't count towards this degree. Mm-hmm. So now I got to, but then still you kind of overshot and you still
graduated a semester early.
You're a hard worker.
Yeah.
Has that always been your work ethic?
Yeah, it really has. Like I always have this conversation with people about like with school. Like some things in school came easy to me as it relates to like creative, like writing. I've always been like good with like writing or anything with reading because I love reading. I started, my dad would take me to the library as young as like 7, 8 years old, and I would get like multiple books and I would read all of those books like all throughout the summer, and I'd be like just reading. So I love stuff like that, but it's like other subjects that didn't come easy to me that I actually had to put effort and work hard in. So like I've always been that way. Even
Which ones were the classes that you had to go hard in?
Science and math, like those real those type of classes.
Okay, so you had this foundation, you had this creativity, you had this kind of like desire for autonomy, and then you were interested in law. That's what we knew from young. Yeah. Then you got this optometry like internship that kind of took you this way. You went biology. Which it kind of sounds like, so for me, I realized I spent 7 years in data analytics and that was not my strength.
Wow, yeah.
So the top 3 responses that I get when I ask, why do you want to leave corporate America, are that you want financial freedom, you want to own your own time, and you want to build a legacy for this generation and generations to come. Now, this is not a solo job. In order to transition from your 9-to-5 into entrepreneurship, it's going to take community and it's going to take resources. And I've created the community of pioneers who are going to wrap around you and help you make that transition successfully. So if you're interested in leaving your job, go ahead and click that information below. Let's get into the community and let's transition from your 9-to-5 into entrepreneurship successfully. Now let's get back to the episode.
It sounds like optometry like took you this way, but then biology, science, those courses were just not your judge.
Yeah, and it's crazy because I like, even when I transitioned out of biology into the international studies, then ultimately sociology, I was actually doing really good but I had to work. Like when I say I had to work hard, like I had to study a whole lot, and I stayed in office hours. So that was
So of the three, majors that you had in high school or college, which one took to you a little bit more naturally then?
The sociology.
Got it. So you finally got to where you were supposed to be.
Yeah. The sociology came it came so easy to me. I'm not even going to stunt. Like sometimes we would have papers that would be due, and I would do them the night before, and I would get like A+. Yeah. Like it's just like that's how easy it came for me. Because I always with sociology, it's a ton of reading and a ton of writing, and I love writing and I love reading. So it came easy.
When you think about like how easy it was back then, do you feel like you either do you know the value? Did you know the value of how easy it was, or did you ever feel like this is easy, this is nothing? How did you feel about that?
It's interesting because like I think in the beginning of it being so easy, I did see the value, but I don't know if it had something to do with like when you get closer to like your senior year, you're like, okay, like this is easy, but like I'm ready to get this over with. So kind of like that perspective. But now looking back, I'm glad that I changed to that major because it was definitely an environment with things that I naturally have a gift in it.
Yeah,
so,
I think that's a blessing.
Yeah,
a lot of people spend so long misaligned, and then even to like tap into your gifts, sometimes you discredit your gifts because you're like, okay, well I do this all the time. Like nobody's gonna pay me for this. Like, this is not something. And if you don't work hard for it, it means it's not worth something.
Exactly.
Like I don't know how we get those like mentalities, but that's a blessing.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think a lot of that mentality comes into like the culture, like the work culture that we've kind of like created or cultivated, where it's just like you gotta work hard and not coming from a place of ease. And even like when it comes to like the work that I do, transitioning out of that like work hard and that thing and kind of working from a place of flow. Like I think that's really important. That's things that I'm like still learning and even cultivating in my life, because I realize like when I work from that place of flow, things come easier, and I'm working in that flow of like things that I'm naturally gifted at, rather than like spending majority of time with stuff that I'm not good at and I'm not naturally gifted in. So
and you gotta work twice as hard,
times as hard to make it work versus working in that space of your natural gifting. Like you end up doing more work in less time.
Yeah, absolutely. So at which point did you get the multi-level marketing like come into play?
Oh man, so I think it was my sophomore year, and one of my friends that I was really close with and I did like ministry work with, she kind of introduced me to the concept of it and things of that nature, and I ended up like was it like my junior year going to this conference in Portland by myself, and it exposed me to that industry. And I just learned about like the importance of like, financial freedom, financial independence, like the importance of having something that you own and can pass down to generations, and understanding like the value of like legacy and things like that. So I definitely learned a ton in that arena. Also learning about the importance of like your daily habits. So we did like a lot of reading, like we were part of like a reading program. So we would have a book a month that we would read, and we read it on a daily basis. And I already loved reading, but a lot of the books that I would read personally had to do a lot with like history and creativity, or like folklore, or nonfiction and things like that. And a lot of the books that we were reading in that arena had to do with like finances and business and entrepreneurship and leadership. So a lot of like John Maxwell books, a lot of like Robert Kiyosaki books, like Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and things like that. So I'm definitely glad I got exposed to that, because that helped even with my perspective of how I navigate like business now. So I learned a ton from that arena for
That's
sure.
awesome.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people, now that I'm in the entrepreneurial space, I know a lot of people who did an MLM first. And I just love that grind, that grit, that personality that comes with it.
Yes.
Did you have to, but everybody in the world, not world, but like everybody on the outside looks at MLM like, that's a scam.
It's a scam.
So, like, did you have to deal with that when it comes to your parents? You went to Portland for a
yes, girl. I did definitely have to deal with that at first, but after a while, so for me, and my parents understand this, I'm a stubborn person. Like, when I'm like gun-ho for something, it's nothing that you could say to stop me. And my parents like, okay. Even when it came to like the conversations about me changing my major, I remember when I was like, I told my mom that I was going to change my major to sociology. She looked at me like, are you really, like, what are you going to do with this? And I had a whole plan, and I had a whole thing set up. She's like, okay, well, go ahead. Because it's just like, she knew in her head, she's like, I can't convince her otherwise, so I might as well just go with the program. So it's the same thing with like the multi-level marketing perspective, whatever. Like, I definitely did get a lot of pushback from like family, some friends, and things of that nature. But then after a while, they saw like how serious I was about it, and even like me, like I'm already like an adamant. I read a ton, study a lot. So like studying why people have these perspectives, and like just understanding different things that I need to know, and engaging with conversation about like network marketing and things like that. So they understood, like I knew what I was talking about. So after a while, like I ended up getting like clients from my, customers from my family and friends and things like that. So yeah, I definitely did deal with that pushback. And I do understand like people's like perspectives, like, oh, this scam and things like that. Because just like in any business or any industry, you can treat something like a scam. You can have pastors in churches that treat things like a scam. You can have people that are in positions of power in government that treat it like a scam and mismanage funds. So it's like any arena, you can treat something and do it illegally, but that doesn't mean that everybody in that arena does that.
Yeah.
So,
and from my perspective, it's set up, if you don't treat it like a scam, it's set up to generate wealth and generate income.
Yes.
Almost from nothing. As long as you have the grit and what I love about MLM, and it's kind of coming up for me right now, and all the MLM motivational speakers, like of the people who I know who do it, the lesson is how to make yourself most valuable so you can attract wealth.
Exactly.
Because literally, if you can develop your human capital, like yourself, you can do whatever you want to do.
Exactly. Yep. So that's so true.
That's lit.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm glad you agree, because there's some thoughts that I have in my mind of like how I would like to tap into MLM networks in the future. I've never done MLM, but I respect it.
Yeah.
I don't believe it's a scam.
I respect it wholeheartedly. I still have my partnership with my business now, and I still get some customers to buy stuff from my stores even now. And I probably will never let it go, because I understand the value and I understand what I gain from it. Like you were saying, that building yourself up, that human capital piece and attraction of wealth. I mean, I agree with that wholeheartedly. Yeah, so yeah.
I love it. So speaking of transitions, at this point in your life, there are, of course, the transition into college. You came from St. Louis to Atlanta to go to school. You changed your major twice. You went into MLM and really like just jumped into it full throttle. You have this like, you said that when you reached peak pushback, you had like your answers together, right? So do you feel like it's necessary? Do you feel like it was necessary for you to have an argument, or do you feel like, I think what I'm trying to get to is like when you reach pushback, sometimes you'll have naysayers.
Yeah.
Right? You'll have people who doubt what you got going on.
Right.
And you had an idea. You had an argument, so to speak, to say, hey, this is why I'm doing it. Did you ever come to a place in your mind where you're like, I don't need to explain myself to you, or I don't need to have a plan. I don't know what's going to happen. I'm just going to do it.
100%. 100%. Because I just realized like some conversations are just fruitless. Like they're not fruitful. Some conversations where like I had those conversations with pushback, they turned into a fruitful moment.
Okay.
But a lot of times it didn't. It just because it's one thing. One of my mentors from the network marketing space would say, "A man convinced against his will is of the same opinion still."
That's good.
And so I'm like, every time I was like, oh, because it's true. Like, you kind of trying to push back on someone's opinion that they're dead set on. Let go.
Yeah.
Let it go. Like, I tell you, I do not have conversations like that anymore in my life because I just feel like a lot of times they're just not fruitful. So, yeah.
That's real. I love that you said that because when I'm thinking about transitions and I encourage people to move forward, there's a whole thing. Like, your mind is going to tell you all these different things. But if there's something you want to do, yes, a plan is necessary. Having a strategy, communicating that it's a great thing.
Yeah.
But if you're going to do it, you better do it and know that just make up your mind to do it. Because at the end of the day, like, I don't think convincing people or even trying to convince yourself, like, you just have to kind of do it at some point.
Yeah.
Stop having conversation around it. Because then that might make you change your mind.
Exactly. So true.
God bless you for not changing your mind.
Hey, God, thank you, God. Man, thank you for making me stubborn.
That's a real thing to be grateful
Yeah,
for.
I really am, because that's what it is.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so you graduated with a degree in sociology. You're still in MLM. What did you do next to get into corporate? You said you got into corporate. You had a couple positions, but
yeah. So the idea for me, I wanted to get in the nonprofit space. So I was doing a fellowship with a nonprofit. It was going okay, but it really wasn't going that well. So I ended up ending. And so like I just ended up like applying to like a ton of positions in the corporate space. And then I was still interested in like the health piece when I graduated from sociology. So I actually had like a minor in public health or whatever. So I was looking for jobs that dealt with like being like a health analyst or something like that. And that's how I ended up finding one of the company that I was working with 4 or 5 years that was in the healthcare and IT space. And I found that, well, it was like a health analyst position that I ended up not getting, but they ended up calling me back for the client services associate position. And that's how I got into corporate.
okay.
Yeah.
And you went into corporate from like client services within what industry specifically?
So the clients that they worked with were more so with insurance companies.
Okay.
So they helped with like their billing, like medical billing and stuff like that, making sure that the insurance companies weren't underpaying or overpaying for claims that they were receiving for people that were under their policies or whatever. So the company that I was working for, they created like rules or like different data sets to help with those things so that they weren't underpaying or overpaying for those bills and stuff like that. So that's what that industry was.
Do you feel like you used your sociology degree at all to do that?
I would say I used my sociology degree definitely from like the reporting and analysis, because in sociology we had to do like a lot of like social statistics and data analysis, and we had to do like a it's like an exit, what is it called, where it's a thesis project. So I had to do interviews with people for my thesis project, and then I had to like record those interviews, capture the data from the interviews, and then I also had to create like data points and analyze the data and then talk about that. In that, so I use like those skills for the position in client services.
Okay.
Yeah.
I like how you were able to even say that, because a lot of people don't even value undergraduate experiences and undergraduate degree. And it doesn't have to be, okay, I got a sociology degree and now I have a sociologist job.
Yeah.
It's like those skill sets that you use that come along with you is how you literally just explained it.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Okay. So from there, like, when did you start to develop this like desire to become like a digital strategist? Like, what was the first person who said, hey, I need some help?
It's interesting because like going back to when I was in school, or even before I went to Spelman, I was always kind of interested in, I started blogging at like 18. So yeah, so I was doing like the blogs on Tumblr.
Back when they had the word.
Yeah,
Tumblr.
yeah, on Tumblr, even before people really got into WordPress. And I was actually starting to create a name for myself on Tumblr. My name was like Amma the Visionary on Tumblr. So I did a lot of blogging, like content that way. So I still like held on to that even when I was in college, like doing all these things and all these academic stuff. I had like my own website where I would develop my own content. I would do commentary on like news, on music, because I'm also huge. I love music, like everything about music. So I did like commentary on music, on faith, on news and things like that, just in my own time. So it's interesting, like as I was like navigating that corporate space and like even getting into the network marketing, building my business and stuff like that, as the years went by, I wasn't really on social media like that, but then I got back on social media, and like as I'm having conversations on there or even off there, I realized even in my conversations about like getting like clients or business partners for the network marketing business, I would be giving people strategies on other stuff in those conversations without like me thinking about it now. I was kind of already navigating that way without thinking about it. And so when I got into a position where I was like thrown into full-time entrepreneurship, it was like I started to utilize those things that I was already doing without thinking, if that makes sense.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
It makes sense.
Yeah.
When we go into business, at least as solo entrepreneurs, the business idea, the business concept that I typically encourage is that whatever you're doing right now that you don't even think about, but you could possibly get paid for, it's valuable because people are already needing that from you.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. And then one thing my business coach always says, Miss Jamila Harris, she would say, like, there are things that are special and unique to you that are of value that people are willing to pay for.
Absolutely.
And it's true.
Yeah, I would say that's probably been one of the things that I've had to learn and experience, because I grew up in a strategic world and my skill sets are all like intangible, right? And so I'm just like, when you realize what people need from you is what you're really, really good at, it's the craziest like feeling.
It really is.
Yeah.
It really is. You're like, dang, I could really get paid for this? I'm like, is this a scam? Am I scamming people? Like, this is crazy.
Thank you so much for watching the Work and Play podcast. This episode is sponsored by the Boss Up Conference, which is a community for entrepreneurs, CEOs, celebrities, and corporate executives to come together, network, and solve some problems. Thank y'all so much for being supporters of the Work and Play podcast. And thank you for watching the Work and Play podcast and all the episodes before. Now let's get back to the episode.
I think like a project or like some hobby that I would develop on my own is like learning how to make beats. Cause I think like production is just like so amazing. And even if you think about like the psychology around like what music does to you mentally in your brain, like it's deep. But yeah, so Snow Allegra, I'm old school, so I have like old school playlists. I'll be listening to like a lot of Teddy Pendergrass, like Stephanie Mills, Anita Baker. I'm not listening to her on streaming right now because she don't want us listening to her on streaming right now until she own her rights to her music. So
that's why it's hard to find.
Yeah, she's fighting for her rights right now. So I'm team Anita, so I'm not doing it.
Gonna do that. I got you.
Yeah, so it like, and then really into hip hop, so you'll probably hear me playing a lot of like old Kanye, some new Kanye. I'm a huge Kid Cudi fan. Like I listen to, I love Kid Cudi.
He's more motivational than I realized.
He is. He did a TED Talk before.
Yes.
That TED Talk was so good. I said, woo.
I said, who is this guy?
Yeah, he is super motivating, very innovative. Like, I love his mindset and his perspective, and I love how he navigates music from like a vulnerable, like open space. And you don't really see that a lot in hip hop. Yeah. So it's just very refreshing. So I'm all over the place, honestly.
I got you.
And I got a good jazz list too. Like my dad's really into jazz, and you know how you find out stuff about your family and stuff that you're like, what? I I think last year that my dad played in a band.
Really?
Yes, he sang and played the drums in a band. I did not know that.
Dad,
and I'm like, this is why I love music so much. This is like,
you've been holding that on the good.
Yeah. And so like he's really into jazz. So like I got into jazz to more so from like a meditative place because it's actually good music to like play while you're working. Ooh. Like jazz music. And so I listen to jazz too.
I like it. It's funny how somebody just told me that we're so much like our dads. Like daughters are much more like their dads.
Yes.
Like you holding out on the goods, Dad. You could have been
I could have been on a band jumping or something. I'm like, what? I didn't know that.
What was his instrument?
So he played the drums, and it's so funny because like this is how you do stuff naturally without knowing it. So I did a trip to Belize when I was in college, a week-long trip. It was like a basically kind of like a volunteer project or whatever, and I brought him back a drum, and he loved it. He loved it so much, and I'm like, well, it makes sense.
Yeah, but he didn't tell you.
He didn't tell me.
Even at that point, he
no.
didn't say like, hey, did you know I used to drum?
He never mentioned it. I actually found out from my mom because we were having a conversation about music. She's like, yeah, your dad, he used to sing in the band and play the drums. I was like, I always would be wondering when we would be driving when I was a kid, he always just be on the steering wheel like this. I'm like, wow, it makes sense. He was a drummer.
Yeah, that's funny. You know, there's another part of you that we didn't really get into, but it's your family. Like you seem to be a really family-oriented person.
Family is everything to me. Yeah. Everything. And I feel like, you know, once I got out of college and like relationships and then building a business, I felt like I was spending less time with my family. And once 2018, 2019 hit, I just like that thought of like, I need to spend more time with my family because these are like, you know, I do all this stuff is for them. Like I'm doing all this stuff with business stuff for them. So I need to spend more time with them. So like now, even with the onset of like the pandemic and stuff, it actually allowed me more time to see them and spend more time with them. Like I was going home like every month to see them. So like, yeah, family's everything. I have my brother here, and then he actually just got married last year. And hopefully I'll be an auntie soon. So, you know, just putting out there.
Manifest.
Yes. So like, yeah, family's everything. I love my parents, and like, even like growing up as a kid, like I ain't have a whole lot of like best friends outside of my family. It was my cousins, because my cousins, like we're like a couple of months apart and then a year apart, so we did everything together. Yeah. So it's everything to me.
I love it. One of the things, like when I think of work and play, it's like being able to build businesses and have fun and work with your family. And a lot of times people have like hang-ups about that. But hearing your passion for your family, do you foresee any opportunity for like you guys to do business together?
Definitely. I definitely see that. I definitely, like, one thing I've been thinking about, and like me and my brother, we've had conversations about business and things like that, but I feel like we're probably going to be in business with each other. Maybe it might be in the real estate space because he has like a lot of experience with that and a lot of like knowledge with that. So I definitely see that as a thing. And plus, like, even in my conversations, and like a lot of my family members come to me for like perspective as it relates to like strategy with business. This is not me telling them what to do. They come to me asking me about stuff. So I definitely can see that for sure. I want that, honestly. I do. I really do. I don't think it should be a thing like, oh, I can't do business with my family because I don't think that has to necessarily be the case.
Yeah.
So yeah.
It doesn't have to be your reality if you don't want it to be.
Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I totally agree.
100%.
Yeah.
So when you think back, you've had like a really, really eventful career experience. And even now, like I think all of your experiences ultimately help your clients because you've lived these different paths. You've had these different experiences. You've read these different books. So it plays a part of your strategy. It's like you tell me something, my head like calculates it right, and then whatever I've experienced is what comes into your strategy.
Right.
So I think that makes you a valuable digital strategist 100%.
Yeah.
So when you think about your journey though, even though it sounds like real cool, I could be on the roller coaster like riding. We talked a lot about the ups. So along the journey in entrepreneurship, a lot of times we don't talk enough about the downs.
Yeah.
So what are some of the challenges that you've like overcome and that maybe gave you a little, maybe not doubt, but a little fear, a little...
Man, it's so crazy because I think even now there are still things that I'm currently overcoming or like going through because like, you know, even getting into full-time entrepreneurship, it came from like a traumatic experience of losing my job. And like one thing that I recognized from like doing a lot of like psychological work and working with like a therapist is that I had this like idea about like money from like a place of lack because of like things that I experienced when I was growing up with like, you know, parents getting into hard economic times and not being able to pay bills and stuff like that. And I had this thought like, I would never be in a position where I'll go through this. Like I'm always have money and all this types of stuff. And then the one fear that I did have was like losing my job. It's so funny, like when it actually took place, I was already in a space where like I was dealing with like a lot of like microaggressions in the corporate space, and then like just not really feeling like I had the support to be able to like flourish and like grow and advance in like a healthy environment. So I was already like looking for things to like get out and find like a more like fruitful environment for me to grow in professionally. So when it happened, it was more so like a release, like a wow, like this, I definitely don't ever want to lose my job, but I'm actually grateful that it did because there was a lot of weight that I lost. But as like navigating into the entrepreneurial space myself, like full time, I realized there was like a lot of like beliefs or like beliefs that come from like lack or like that come from just like I would say poverty minded thinking that I had to like recognize, conceptualize, and then let go, and then accept beliefs that are more so in line with abundance, like, and things like that. So that's still things that I'm going through. And even with like working in the space of entrepreneurship, one thing that I had to learn is not all money is good money, and not all clients are in alignment with you. Like some client relationships you don't need to necessarily have, and not every no is a bad thing. It could be a good thing because that could have been you aligning with something that really wasn't in alignment with like who you are, your values, your purpose, and your mission, and the things that you want to do. And even like recognizing like when you do get clients and you have contracts with them, some contracts might not be as good and may need to be pivoted or be redirected. So like it's some things that I've experienced that at first it looked like something that I could be depressed about, or I could have anxiety about, and I even went through those emotions, but looking from a different perspective, it was actually a good thing that happened. So that's one thing that I'm like recognizing in this journey is that things that happen or circumstances that happen outside of your control don't have to necessarily determine like your internal state.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like now with this entrepreneurial journey, it's like a lot of looking at yourself and then really, really analyzing those relationships that you align yourself with. Also, this mindset shift of like, and the funny thing is the MLM space helps you think in abundance, right?
Yes, yeah.
And I would think like that automatically puts you on this like entrepreneurial track. But hearing you say like you still have some things to unlearn and relearn and grow from.
Yes.
That's actually really, really, it's humanizing. You know what I mean? Like we learn things and then we learn them again.
Yeah.
And it's some stuff that we just have to revisit. Like, oh yeah, I read this before. Yeah. I know this already. Literally. Sometimes like you can, and I know for me personally, you can be so caught up in like the work that you have to do that you can lose sight of the things that you already know internally, and you'll be reminded of those things like I know this, and then operate it from it. And I honestly,
I honestly enjoy that because I feel like I think it was like a post I saw on social media where it's talking about, I actually love it. They were saying like, I actually love being in a space where I'm presenting with something that I can do better in or that I can unlearn, because that means that I'm still human and I still have room for growth. Like, so that's a beautiful thing, honestly. So
sounds like self-fulfillment.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah.
When you envision like yourself, like 5, 10, even 2 years from now, like what does that next level look like for you?
It's crazy. I was having a conversation with one of my friends the other day, and so one person that like inspires me from the perspective of business, like how he operates is like Elon Musk, because I feel like he's like a serial entrepreneur. Like I came up with the concept of PayPal, did that, made money from it, then Tesla, did that, made money from that, now I'm going to space. And honestly, how I look at it for myself in the next 5 to 10 years, I really want to be in the space of like a serial entrepreneur. Like, it's like, okay, I have this digital strategist thing that I'm still operating because that comes from like the core of who I am. So I'll never let that go. But I want to be able to like navigate and invest into different spaces. Like, okay, like I have this, but then I'm in real estate, or I have this and I'm a angel investor. Like one thing, like honestly, I really want to be like an angel investor into like a lot of businesses from people that are diverse. More so, entrepreneurs are people that just don't come from communities that have access to the capital to be able to conceptualize those ideas that they have in the business space. And I want to be in a position to be able to have money to invest into those things. So honestly, like I really want to be in that place in the next 5 to 10 years.
I love it.
Yeah.
And it sounds like, if I can even extrapolate larger for you, it sounds like ideal success, if I could define it for you, I'm gonna try, but I know there's a whole thing. But it's you being able to do this serial entrepreneur as well as keep your family, like keep those 2 heartbeats going.
Yes.
It sounds like that's what would be a good like flow for you.
Yes.
So like if you think about that's just a concept, right?
Right.
And whatever that looks like is what it looks like. And you think about your present day, are there any areas do you feel like you're not playing full out, or you kind of like you're not really pushing like you could?
It's so funny because I naturally already think like that. That I feel like I could always be doing more in almost everything. Mm-hmm. So it's like I feel like I'm doing stuff, but I feel like I actually could be. So it's funny I feel like even still there's more to like learn and grow from in that digital strategy space that I could do more in. I feel like I am doing, but there's still more to do. And I feel like for me, one thing that I think is the core of everything that I do and branches off that connects to everything that I do is from like a more so mental health space. And I feel like I need to invest more into that.
Yeah.
So I would say
mental health.
Yeah, mental health.
Like, do you meditate?
Yeah, so one thing that I've been growing in is like meditating. So like even when I work out with one of my friends who's also a business owner too, we'll work out and then we'll do meditation. So I've been working on like increasing my times with meditating and just disconnecting from like the outside world and like connecting within, and just really taking time to like visualize. I've been exposed to this guy. His name's like Dr. Joe Dispenza, and he talks a lot about like the science around like how our mind literally creates realities. Yeah. And one thing he talks about is detaching yourself from the past and connecting yourself to your future self, and literally like visualizing it, and beyond just visualizing, like emotive, like what's the emotions that are connected with your future self? Like, how would you feel when you're in this place? And literally connecting those emotions to that and putting yourself in a space on a daily basis of doing that, and how that literally will lead to the outcomes that you want to see. And I'm like, okay, yeah. So I've been working on doing that myself, and it's been powerful.
Hey guys, it's Ariel from the Work and Play podcast. If you're getting any value from this channel, and I mean anything from the tutorials to the podcast to the random videos that you see on this channel, then I just ask that you do one thing. Please subscribe. Subscribe and share this to anyone that you think this resonates with, and drop a comment below so I know what other things that you want to see next. Now let's get back to the episode.
So in the vein of you manifesting things into your reality and really practicing your mental game, like going harder in your mental game. One of the things that my coaches helped me understand is like I can manifest the kind of clients that I want to work with. And so as I think about what am I attracting, who am I attracting, that's a thing for me, right?
Yeah.
So as you think about your meditation practice and who it is that you really want to attract to yourself, what type of clients are you like really excited about working with?
I'm really excited about working with people that are really, really creative, and not just creative in the vein of like, oh, they're artists, they're musician, they're things like that, but creative as it relates to business, and they're very innovative in their thinking. They want to like go against the status quo, go against the grain, very like open-minded in their thinking as it relates to like working in a collaborative space. And being open to like perspective that may challenge their own thinking about how they think they should do things. So those are the type of clients that I want to attract, and definitely like more higher level clients, more high end clients, high ticket clients, so things like that.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
and I can see like the way you run. Your thought process around like what does it take to build your brand in 2021. It's not just about like branding, but it's also how do we make that brand stand out. And everything that we do is on a technological
Exactly.
platform.
Yes.
So being able to think around that is like so awesome. And I never asked you like, where did the technology, like where did your wisdom around technology come from?
It's interesting because like I connected with like the innovations as it connects to like social media, and like I've done like a lot of like research and study to like innovations behind like what transitions people are making in like business, what things that they're looking at. And I've always like had this, so I connected to something that just happened, like something that usually happens with me. Like when I'm presented with like a problem, I always think of like a solution that would help for it. So that's where I think as far as like the technological space, because one thing that has always like interested me and that I studied and did like a lot of research on and looked at articles is around like automation and like how people are like integrating that in their business, and how that really is kind of like reshaping like the job market and how like jobs are navigated and stuff like that. And I've always thought about like how can I integrate that in like my recommendations to other business owners, or even help me as a business owner, like integrating that. So that's kind of like always been my perspective, like what's new going on, what people are talking about as it relates to technology. And I've always like had an interest in that, even as young as a kid. So like that's kind of where that perspective has come from.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
That's why you're not like this huge like techie. You are a strategist who knows how to leverage technology to bring the vision to life.
Yes.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Okay, so as we go into the future, some jobs are trendy, some jobs are here today, gone tomorrow.
Yeah.
Help us understand, why do clients need a digital strategist? And then in the future, what's the future of like the digital strategist position?
I would say people need a digital strategist because people have antiquated ways of thinking, and people need to be challenged in their perspectives of thinking. And when it comes to strategy, you look at a problem or a situation from multiple perspectives. So it's like multifaceted thinking. And a lot of people, when they think about business, they think about it from like the perspective of the specific industry that they're in. And sometimes they don't integrate that thinking as it relates to like technology, as it relates to administration, as it relates to like customer retention, as it relates to how you even treat your customer, like customer relations, because some businesses are like terrible with that, and some businesses have a whole structure and system as it relates to like customers that garners more customers and things like that. So they're not thinking about all of those different like facets to their business. And honestly, their main focus should be customer retention and customer client acquisition. So those income generating activities. So a strategist comes in and helps to give a voice to those different facets of their business that they might not have like considered that impact those income generating activities, them even having the time to focus on that. So
Y'all always want to be valuable.
Yeah.
So stick me in and let me figure out how do we build a strategy around it.
Yeah.
I love it. So thank you so much, Alma, for joining me on the couch.
This has been really great. This is my first time doing that. I was definitely nervous, but this was awesome. Thank you so much.
You have a beautiful personality, so I'm just like, we're getting into your story. We're going left and right. And so I'm glad you've been able to like follow my questions because I am so curious about a lot of things, and there's so much for us to get into, which of course we didn't get into everything, so you guys are going to have to connect with Alma on social media so that we can, one, connect with your story and see your growth as an entrepreneur.
Yes.
And then two, continue to connect with you and work with you in your business. So one of the things that I do on the show, it's like a ceremonial question at this point because as we move forward and we're reaching our goals and we're reaching our higher heights, there's someone that is in our shoes, or there's someone who is like right behind us, looking to get their next step, looking to get their next win. So when you reach back and you think of someone whoever that person is, whether it's the little girl who was in school just kind of creative and thinking about autonomy, or if it's someone who just needs that confidence to transition and figure out where their flow is, who would that person be, like when you think about it in your mind? But then what would you say to that person?
I would say to that person, trust their gut and trust their journey. Just trust it. And even if you question yourself, don't allow those questions to stop you from making decisions that may seem like, and it's the funny thing, like even if as I think about like how I navigated my journey and thought about like, is this a right decision or is this a wrong decision? Every decision, every transition you make, there's something that you can learn from it and you can take with it where you're going next. So that's why I just say like trust the journey. Whatever that is, however it like develops and or unfolds, just like trust it and trust your gut. And take risks, and even when you do take those risks, learn from it so you can take more calculated risks. So that would just be my perspective, is to just trust your gut. Because I think a lot of times for me personally, like there's a lot of things that I depended so much on other people's voices that I didn't trust my own. So I really like value that. It's like telling people just trust your own voice.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. And it sounds like you have trusted your voice and trusted your gut the entire way to get to a place where now you get to spend time with your family, work on your business, be knowledgeable, not only knowledgeable, but aware of the time you spend in your business and the time you spend with your family, so that you can manifest a life that encompasses all those things.
Yes.
So thank you again.
Thank you
for joining me. And if there's anyone who resonates with your story, whether listening or watching, where can they get in contact with you? How can they work with you?
So you can get connected with me on Instagram at ama.thedigitalstrategist. Also, if you're into going to websites, because a lot of people don't really go to websites like that, honestly, you can reach me at www.everlastingperception.com. Also, I'm on LinkedIn, just my name, Ama Yates Ekong. And you can reach me on those channels. And also Everlasting Perception on Facebook too. So
wonderful. Yeah. Well, there you have it. If you haven't had enough notes, then go back, replay this, and then take some notes on how you can actually build your digital strategy for your business, or just go ahead and reach out to Ama.
Yes, reach out to me.
So until next time, peace out.
Yeah.